Just want to quickly shout out all of our partners and thank them for the support. Enhanced CBD, Performance Box Supplements, Fortress Fightwear, Boca Jewelry, and Core Hand Wraps. We really thank you for the support. We've got codes and links to all of them, and we'll post them with the episode link. Hello and welcome back to Super Necessary. Today we are joined by Peter Miller. Now, Peter is a nutritionist based in Perth, Australia, who is originally from Garston in Liverpool. And he's just basically, he's got a company, Condition Nutrition, and he's trying to change the nutrition game, help people realize the goals, help people get a better lifestyle, essentially. So it's a pleasure to have you on. Peter, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to chatting with you both.
Not a problem. Thank you for reaching out. It's certainly something very different than anything we've done on here before. So it's going to be eye opening for us, I think. So really looking forward to it. So first of all, just tell us how you got into the field of nutrition.
So originally, when I left school, I didn't really do very well in school, and I ended up training to be a plumber. And then, like 6 months in, I thought, this is not really for me. And I always had an interest in sport. Like, one of my only grades in the GCSEs was PE. So went back to Vauxhall Road, Liverpool Community College, to the sports course. And then, just literally spiraled from there. Ended up doing that, and then went to Edge Hill, did a sports science degree, and then did a master's in chess there. And then, I thought, why not start my own business and start working with athletes and stuff. And then you think at the time, it's gonna kick off straight away, but it's been a long journey to get to where I am now. It's taken about 4 or 5 years, but so started off. I actually started off as a meal prep company in Liverpool.
All right, okay.
And then it's sort of like I was working with a couple of athletes, and then a lot of people are inquiring, "Oh, do you cook the food?" And this is when like the meal prep thing really started like kicking off. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll give it a try. Yeah, why not?" And then I started doing that. And then I'd always wanted to come to Australia. It'd been like a dream of mine to go. And then one day I just realised, fuck it, and just packed my bags. And in 6 weeks, I flew to Australia on my own. And 4.5 years later, I'm still here.
Incredible.
So I've been doing. So I started mainly working online with guys, and then just the power of social media. It's just gone from when you get one referral to now I've got guys pretty much all across the world. It's crazy how things work out.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Did doing the meal prep stuff, did that help you understand nutrition better while you were doing that as well?
It made me realise as well that quite a lot of people are lazy. So trying to like sort of help me out with my plans now, as where like you try and make things as simple as possible. I think a big thing now, like a lot of people try and make nutrition as complicated as possible, and like no wonder like people are confused on the internet with all these different like diets and these supplements and stuff. And like it definitely helped me in terms of like breaking it down and making things as simple as possible.
Yeah, definitely it is. People do think it's like quite complex, don't they? But you mentioned about it being a dream to move Australia, but was part of that move also to pursue condition nutrition in a different place, or was that just I want to go over there?
Yeah, it was. I had like, I used to sounds a bit weird. I used to watch all like Neighbours and stuff. I think, I'd love to have like I'd love to have like a nutrition business out in Australia, like the sun, the sea, the lifestyle. I like when I moved over there, I thought it'd be a lot easier than it was. And when you come to Australia, like every man and his dog's into his health and fitness. It's like a completely different ball game out here, and it's taken quite a while to get used to that sort of process and the way they do things over here, and sort of adopting a bit more of a Aussie kind of attitude. It's hard to explain, but I was naive when I came out. I just thought, I'll because I when I was doing the meal prep, I did quite a lot of stuff online anyway, doing like meal plans, diet plans, and I thought I could just transfer that over and I'd be all good to go. And then it took probably about 3.5 years to actually get it as a full-time business again over here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, over here we've got like takeaways on every corner. You know, I'm assuming Australia is it like that? So there must have been a
Do you know what? It's surprising. There's actually loads. So like it's weird. So they have like shopping malls and like every like it's in KZ, so like every like couple of miles, and there's always like KFC, McDonald's, Burger King. There's loads over it. It's actually more than at home. But like I think just the lifestyle thing. A lot of people, because the weather's nice, you know, most of the year. Our winters are, you know, they're like 16, 17 degrees during the day. So I think people have got a lot more of an active lifestyle and they take the food a lot more seriously. But yeah, it's sort of getting used to that way of living. It definitely took a while to get used to it.
Do you think that's more for the tourists when they come over? Oh, look, there's a KFC. We know that.
It's crazy because you see the mad into the coffee over here, like coffee in the mornings, like a iced latte and all stuff like that. When you go to the McDonald's drive-through and it'll in the morning and it'll be like miles long, just people getting the coffees. It's weird.
Obviously, you say that everyone's sort of into health and fitness in Australia. Anyway, have you had to do anything to try and make yourself stand out more than to succeed over there?
Well, I think the big thing for me is I used to work with everyone. I used to work with like general population. I used to work with, you know, some footballers, rugby players, and then I was working with combat sports athletes, and then I really like niched it down. And I think ever since I've niched it down to combat sports, that's where it's taken off in terms of my business. Because I feel like sometimes when you're a bit too broad, when you're posting stuff on your social media and stuff like that, but like probably like yourselves, like the messages get mixed. So when I really like, I've always been interested in like combat sports and stuff like that. But as soon as I niche me business down to that area, that's when my business took off.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So on the 13th of October, you put a post up about your goals for condition nutrition and sort of the amount of time you wanted to hit them goals. Can you just sort of talk a little bit about where you was in life at that point and sort of what made you, you know, what did you do to hit them goals sort of 2.5 years earlier than you planned?
So at that point, I came over and I got into like a sort of travel bug and didn't really, because like I'll be honest, I came out here very naive, and then you sort of get a bit lost where like it's a big place when you come on the other side of the world, and you know, and I was in hostels and stuff like that, wasn't really too sure what to do. And then I wrote down a list of goals that I wanted to achieve while I was over here, and I think really like I didn't actually believe in myself a lot. I didn't believe that I could actually do it. I think that was the big part. I think as soon as I actually thought, you know what, I can hit them goals, and a bit of belief, and you know, I'm mad into like me self-improvements and motivational videos and stuff like that, and it starts hitting like that, and then it's just a spiral effect. Like I look back at how like when I wrote them down and then to where I am now, it's just crazy. I probably never thought it would happen, but it's just like a spiral effect. Like once I got a couple of guys weighing in, reviews, and then someone sees it on social media, and it's just literally just gone from that over the past 12 months to, it's crazy. Like it's like mentioned on that post, like, you know, work with a couple of UFC fighters now, world champion Muay Thai fighters, boxers. So it's like, it's crazy, the power of social media, and like that one years ago, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen. And I'm definitely very grateful for the position I'm in now.
I think one of the biggest things is the belief in yourself. Like,
100%.
If you didn't have that, where do you think you would be in this journey? Like, if you didn't think I need to believe in myself,
I'd probably be back home, to be honest with you. Like, I'll be honest, like I was like, not going too deep, but like, I was with a partner, and she wanted to go home at the time. Things weren't going great over here, like job situation. Like I seriously considered about going home, and then that sort of thing sort of dissolved, and I realized I wanted to stick at it. And then it's crazy what you can do when you actually, and it sounds really cliche, but actually when you believe in yourself, and you can actually do quite a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true. It's believe in yourself, push yourself as far as you can go. You know,
100%.
it's even the weekend just gone, shows you like if you believe in yourself, you can defeat a world champion who's been there for over 5 years, and make it look easy as well. So yeah, no, definitely big thing is believe in yourself. So next one then, sort of tying into current situations, everything that's going on. How important is it now, like more than ever, for people to get the right nutrition?
I think it's about, like, if a reference to fighters, I think at the moment, there's been lockdowns for months and months now, and people's fights have been put off, and then that can have a toll on your mental health. Like I've spoken to fighters openly, and they've been really down about things, and I've trained X amount of time for the fight, and I keep on getting pushed back for these lockdown delays. And when you're in that mindset, sometimes you can go off the rails, but you can go off the plan and start eating more, put on weight, and then when the fight comes up, if you're in a more difficult situation when you started in. And I think and also in the sense of right now, it is a good thing, social media and the internet, accessible information, but there's also a lot of misinformation, and especially for fighters, and how to make weight, how not to make weight, and it's for me, my practice, it's often a daily thing, trying to, a guy will come over, what do you think about this? I've been told about this, and you're constantly trying to, fact check and reassure that this is the right way to do things, and it's not this way. It's just, but at the same time, with combat sports, MMA, etc., it's sort of passed down the bad sort of diet culture, and this coach did that, and that coach did that, and then this guy did it. You see, the Dagestanis, they made weight that's they make weight really is not the best practices, but the world champion, he's a world champion, he's done it this way, that must be the right way to do it, but it's not.
yeah
Is the challenges in, obviously different people have different sort of needs and different wants and stuff, so how much difficulty is there in sort of making plans for every individual person?
Yeah, I think a lot of time you got to take into, because I work with guys in different countries and stuff, so you have to take into account cultural differences, religious beliefs and stuff like that, which is sometimes can be challenging. But you really got to I try and get the way I work, I try and cater for them, make their life as easy as possible. I won't give someone who doesn't eat salmon, is salmon 3 times a week. You've got to really cater around. I think that's a big thing, especially the fitness area, and even nutritionists. It's you think it's a one size fits all approach, and if it works for them, it's going to work for that someone else, and there's no sort of tailoring around. So I try and be is really get a good assessment of the individual, what the needs are, what the foods they like, because when you're in a fight camp, for example, it's hard enough as it is. So you want to make the process as easy as possible and have things that they actually enjoy to eat and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I've seen a post of someone eating ice cream. It was like seaweed conditioned nutrition, I can eat ice cream. You know what I mean? So it's
well, that one of them got that guy actually. He was notorious, so he'll openly admit. So he's a Muay Thai fighter, and he said the first time we worked with nutritionists, but he's been doing it for a while now, and he said he often lost 7 kilos in the bath the night before. used to just eat shit the whole time, and then like when I was asking him what his favorite foods, I said, "Look, I love Halo ice cream. Like, is there any way we can incorporate Halo ice cream into the diet plan?" I was like, "You know, yeah, like we can work around it." Like, and do you know what? Him having that Halo ice cream, that makes his whole fight camp a lot easier, because he knows at the end of the day he can have something that he enjoys, and psychologically that can make a massive difference.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think even just from like, you know, just an average person's point of view, the one thing I've always sort of told myself if I've been dieting is, well, one, don't really call it a diet, but also if you want something, just kind of just have it, even if it's not
Yeah.
necessarily on your plan. Just because if you sort of say, no, I can't have that, and keep putting it off, eventually it'll just sort of come back, and you'll end up having 10 of the things that you wanted instead of that one at the time, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I get guys, like I have quite a mix where some guys, like, give them a plan, like they follow it, they don't really ask any question, and you get them, oh, I had like a chocolate bar, or I had like, am I all right to go out for a meal tonight? I'm just like, yeah, go for it. Like look, like you're training 3 times a day, you're following your plan 6 days, like go and enjoy yourself. I want you to do that. I don't want, like, because if that, as you said, if you don't do that, that builds up, then you start getting more stressed out, and it just, like, you would just want to make it as easy as possible. And like, especially with like a fighter, the amount they train, you can allow that a lot more.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think it's a big thing with like eating disorder as well. There's like been a couple of studies where, like, with the continuous weight cycling, a lot of guys in the future have eating disorders, and so it's a big problem. And I think you've just got to educate them, and where like you've got to have some balance. But as long as you're consistent, look, if you're consistent 80% of the time, and you want to go out for something to eat, or you want to have a beer, like, go for it. Like, you don't want to live like a monk.
Yeah.
But then obviously, like, you've got to take into account, like, say if someone had a really big cut, well, people who really work for me I don't typically get them to a big cut, but you know, if it's a few weeks out, maybe you need to be a little bit stricter. But if you're hitting the target and you've got a good amount of time preparing, then yeah, it's all good to me.
Good stuff.
So just sort of touching on that then, excuse me, is there much difference in creating a plan for like your sort of pro athletes that you've got, and then your average person who's just looking to keep themselves in shape?
Yeah, so majority now, I like 90% of my clients are all fighters. I only really work with, the only like general population people I work with is just people who are actively training in MMA or jiu-jitsu. So it's sort of so like with a fight camp plan, or like with someone who's training, it's sort of the same principles, but you've got to with the general population, it's not, you don't have to, what's a word for, you don't have to take as many, but so for example, on a fight camp plan, you need to get, body fat assessments. Ideally, you want to get like blood work before you start, just so all the bases are covered before you're making that weight, because often guys are going to lose quite a lot of weight, and there's health implications. So for the average Joe, you don't really need to get them markers, because they're just losing weight at a slow rate. They haven't got a time scale to do that. So it's it's definitely a lot different. But yeah, as I said, like now, like majority of my work is just with guys in fight camps or in and around a fight.
Yeah. I think you may have touched on it a little bit there, but on your Instagram, you've posted like some videos showing athletes going through certain tests, like the mask on and that. What did you test it for there, and how does that help to make a nutrition plan?
So one of the first ones, like Vo2 Max, so basically it's a marker of your fitness. So like your aerobic capacity. So if you translate that into a fight, how, like, have you got an engine to last the fight? You can last 5 rounds. So the VO2 max is probably like one of the main tests you do. So say for example, so I'll give you an example. So I'm working with a guy who's got his UFC debut in 270, yeah. And so we've got data from the UFC PI. So we do the test, the VO2 max test, and we can compare that to his division, the welterweight division, and what's good or what's bad. So then you can use that. So for example, say we had in comparison to normative data, an average VO2 max, then we know that we need to work on that during training. We need to do some more endurance stuff. And then, for example, we did a Wingate test. So Wingate test basically measures your anaerobic power, so basically your power output. So, if you've got a below average power output, right, we need to do some more HIIT stuff to get that power output up. And same with like the strength. So it's all like tailoring around. Like obviously a lot of fighters haven't got access to them facilities. I'm quite lucky that I've got ECU University down the road, and there's a guy who works there, Dr. Oliver Barley. He's like probably one of the best combat sports researchers in the world. So we're lucky to have them facilities to bring local pair fighters in there. But for your amateur guy, it is quite difficult to do that. But I always say, like, test, don't guess. So ideally, you definitely want to be getting some form of body fat assessment, because if you're making the weight, say for example, you're 79 kilos and you need to make lightweight, but you've got 7% body fat, like where the fuck are you getting, where are you losing that weight from? It's like, where are you pulling it from? So like, it's always good to get a body fat assessment, because you go, right, this is where we're at. We know we can lose X amount from fight week, and then we can lose the remaining weight through, acute weight loss strategies we'll probably dive into later. But it's always important to get a body fat scan, because like you've probably seen on my post, like, test, don't guess. If you're not testing, you're guessing. And with combat sports, there's a lot of health implications. It's not just, a rugby player fueling up for the game. There's a lot of things that you got to take into account. So yeah, you've got an idea. So my starting process for someone signing up is a body fat scan. And if you can get some blood work, because I've had incidents in the past where guys have felt like fatigued during training. I was like, look, I've pushed on them to get blood work, and then they've been iron deficient, but we wouldn't have known that until we got a blood test. So like, then you can work on it. Then if you wouldn't got them tests, you wouldn't know. Same with, like, obviously, as I mentioned before, the VO2 Max test and Wingate test and stuff like that you can only really do in like a university. But if we wouldn't have known that data, we wouldn't have known what to work on for him for his UFC debut, kind of thing. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. The sports science side of it, isn't it? It's very intriguing, like.
It's crazy to see how much it's come along, and how, like, originally with like combat sports research, like, I remember when I was in uni, I had to do like a case study on a fighter, and I was looking at the research, and it was literally like next to no research. And now, luckily, with like the UFC PI and stuff like that, more and more research is coming out. So it's because there's a lot more sports science, especially like in MMA now, which is good, because like more good research is coming out. And even studies, like there's like studies on water load, what's the best way to water load, what's the best way of your macros for a fight camp, or what's the best way to lose the weight come fight week and stuff like that. So it's definitely a growing area. And it's like, I thought it really cool, because I didn't originally know that there's like data from the UFC PI. So like, when I got told that we do these tests with one of my clients, like, we can compare it against the other UFC fighters in that division, like, that's awesome. Like, being able to see that and go, right, he's better, he's above average in that area, and he's doing better than so and so. And they say, it's like, that's like really cool to like see. And it's like, years ago, like even like 2-3 years ago, I don't think the UFC PI, but I think it's only been open for about 4 years. Like, say, like 5 years ago, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to got that data. And it's like, it's cool how everything's evolving now.
Yeah, it's so quick as well. All these advancements and stuff like that. It's amazing, and it must obviously be a massive help to you, like you say. With that one fighter, you found out he was iron deficient, so you can obviously then cater his nutrition to bring his iron levels up.
Yeah, and like that's it. Like, because I've had problems, but not problems, but like if someone's inquired about a plan, and I've gone, look, like I need this and this one before we start. I'm like, well, why do we need that? Like, obviously cost and stuff, but like the way I look at it, it's like it's your health. Like you want to know what's going on inside your body. Like so like sometimes that tears people to work because they'd rather I'd rather just go to someone else and just get a generic kind of thing. But like my process is like I want to get as much information as I can, and like even though I work mostly remotely, I still get some of my like guys back in the UK to try and get them tests, like them Vo2 Max Test, them Wingate Test, because at the highest level, them small percentages can be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people say it's a game of inches, and
Yeah,
to that, that's those little details can make the biggest difference. So
yeah,
definitely.
100%.
Yeah. So you mentioned talking about weight cuts, and obviously we do see a lot of fighters struggling with them. You see them fighting the weigh-ins and stuff like that, and just really not in a good way with it. In your opinion, can weight cuts be done safely with the right nutrition, or do you think it's something that needs to be changed?
I think you can do it if it's done the right way. So you need a big problem that a lot of fighters have is like they've got too much weight to cut to start off with, and they're following advice off the coach or someone who has no real expertise in nutrition. And first thing they do is like, boom, cut out carbs straight away. Say for example, they've got 8 weeks out and they just cut carbs straight away, start having protein and veg, and then it comes to fight week and it's like they've still got 6 kilos to lose, for example. And like the only way they're getting that weight off is through severe dehydration or sitting in the sauna. So if I'll backtrack a little bit. So say I'll give like a case study example. Say someone was 78 and they had to weigh in at 70, and gave them from like week 1 to 1 week out over an 8-week period. We gave them I typically go for a 3-2-1 principle. So like 3 grams per kilogram body mass for carbohydrate. So so 78 times 3 is around 160 odd anyway. So you do that, and then you times it by, for protein, times by 2, and then 1 is 1 gram per kilogram. So it's 140 grams of protein, 70 grams of fat, for example. And you do that up until fight week, you gradually lose the weight. So say, for example, I made this sound really confusing now. So I mean, I'll go back. So say someone's 78 kilos, need to weigh in 70. I know I could get you, and you were 8 weeks out. I know I could get you to around 75 come fight week with a proper nutrition plan, and we can lose that remaining weight from doing acute weight loss strategies. So the first one is carbohydrate restriction. So if you cook 1 gram of carbs, hold 3 grams of water. So if you're eating quite a lot of carbohydrates throughout the fight camp, simply by just removing carbs the final week, you can lose potentially around like 2 kilos of body weight. And then the second one would be fiber. So fiber, a lot of fiber gets like undigested in the gut. So if you're eating a lot of fiber throughout your fight camp, a lot of fruits, veggies, you remove fiber in the final week, like 4 days out, less than 10 grams a day. Once again, you could lose around 1 to 2 kilos. And then salt's osmotic, so holds onto water. So once again, simply just remove salt from your diet, and some people can lose around a kilo. So that's just water weight. So it's not actually tissue. So it's simply like just by manipulating your diet, you can lose quite a lot of body weight. And then say you've only got 1 kilo to lose in the hot bath or sauna, and then it ends up being it would end up being an easier wake up. But what a lot of guys do, they don't have a proper nutrition plan to start with, and then it comes to fight week and they've already starved themselves for that long, they can't use them strategies to get that weight off. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem where, like, as I've said before, like they undertake too big of a cut to start with. They haven't got any, like, body fat assessments. They think, oh yeah, it's good to go, and they're, for example, like, under 10%, they're trying to lose 8-9 kilos, and it's just too hard. Sometimes I've had difficult conversations with people and say, look, like, I thought it's going to be a shit weight cut. I don't advise you to do it, but then you've got to take into account where this guy's getting paid to do that, and a lot of the time the coach is going to say, fuck what the nutritionist says, you're taking the fight. Especially in a remote set, like, especially with the Skyweight remote, they've got more contact with the coach than me, so they're like, the coach is going to say you're taking the fight, and that sometimes is an issue. But bringing it back to what we said, like, if you have the right structured nutrition plan and you've got enough time to make the weight, that fight week you can easily, safely lose around 8 to 10% of your body weight just from them strategies that I mentioned.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of it as well is just changing bad habits when it comes to weight cutting. It just sounds like there's some bad practices, unsafe practices, I should say. It just sounds like a lot of it is changing those habits and try and make fighters think a bit differently about their approach to it.
Because that's the thing I get a lot. A guy will come to me in like 3 weeks out and like, oh, I've got X amount to lose in 3 weeks. It's like, I like, a lot of people do get fights on short notice, but then sometimes you speak to them like, oh, I've been doing this you've been in camp for 5 weeks now. It's like you're now thinking about doing the weight descent now.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to be prepared, and then you continuously doing a bad cut after bad cut. It just takes its toll on the body, and like there's been studies where even when they're saying about eating disorders, and there's a theory where, like, the continuous weight cycling, your body gets primed more for fat storage. So the more you lose the weight, put the weight back on, lose the weight, put the weight back on, it just makes it harder and harder as the years go on to actually make that weight.
And like, that was one thing I was actually going to ask, is like, what's worse? Like, I'm thinking about Paddy the Baddy, like cutting a lot of weight or putting weight on so quick, like, he balloons up after the fight. Like, what's worse in your opinion, putting that weight on so quick in a short space of time, or like a severe weight cut in terms of the body? Like,
well, there was a study actually on Paddy the Baddy from a guy in Liverpool, John Moores, where he did, I can't remember, it was a few years ago, and he did a really big weight cut, and they checked like his kidney health, and he had like acute kidney damage and stuff like that. Like, like that's really bad. But I think it's a bit of both, really, where if you're ballooning up after the fight, then it just makes it hard and harder. So I try and implement what's called like a reverse diet. It's a bit big in like the bodybuilding scene. So like I try to, this is like a lot of the time, guys, when they finish the fight, they won all the loss, like, okay, I'm just going to go and go off for a bit and do whatever. Yeah. But I try and get guys to go, right, let's try and slowly introduce the calories back in. So we do it like a stepwise fashion instead of just putting it all back on and ballooning up. If you do it in a slower fashion, you don't put as much weight on, you don't put as much body fat on. And then when you get the call again to go to another fight, it's not as difficult. But the majority of people, unfortunately, like, they go off, going, oh, they go to Tenerife, balloon up again, and then it's the same thing again. But then this time it's that little bit harder, and then the next time it's that little bit harder, and then the next time it's that little bit harder, and then it's just about education. And I understand as well. I try and, like, whether they're with me or not, I try and educate them out of fight camp. Say, look, try and be a bit more watchful on what you're eating and stuff, but sometimes it's easier said than done to these guys.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think with a lot of fights, it's either you can focus on fighting and improving your technique there, or having the fight week be focused on that time span leading up to the fight, that being more focused on getting the weight cut. And I think a lot of the time it's either that or that. You know what I mean? You can't like combine it and do it in
Not a lot of balance.
Yeah.
Well, and as well, you got to take into account that these guys have been training, 8 weeks, 3 times a day, and like they've trained hard, and like they want to like just blow off a bit of steam. And I understand that, like that's cool, but like this is me putting like me science nerdy hat on. But like if you want to like just sustain career, like you've got to like sort of be a bit more, like a few days is cool, a week's cool, but like going on to like 2-3 weeks in a month, and then you're like, oh, I'm 15 kilos heavier now. It's just like you've got to, you've because weight cutting isn't, as I mentioned before, it's not just a easy thing that everyone can do, and it's there's no health implications. Like you do it wrong, it can be fatal. So you've got to be wary. I've had instances with guys where as soon as they've started following a plan or started working with myself or someone like me, like the whole game's just completely changed. They're in the best shape they've ever been, and they're hitting new levels just from being a bit more mindful of the nutrition now.
Yeah. So with this one, I know it might differ from like nutritionist to nutritionist, but in your opinion, can we really live well and to our body's full potential with like a limited diet? So say like, for example, a vegan might not won't consume meat. Like, can we live to our full potential with limiting what we eat?
That's a very good question. I don't know if I can really give a definitive answer to that. Like in terms of a vegan diet, like you can get all the macronutrients, micronutrients from comparison to a meat eating diet, but you need to consume the right things. You need, like, for example, protein. Like a lot of vegan proteins aren't complete sources of protein, which mean they lack like essential amino acids. So you need to combine different protein sources to get the same amount that you get in meat. Yeah. So but then at the same time, like a vegan, for example, you got to take into like ethical reasons. But I wouldn't say there's no, bringing it back to what I said before, there's no like one size fits all diet. There's diets that work for or meal plan. I wouldn't say like that, but meal plans that work better for some, work better for others. But I don't think I answered that question that very well.
So sort of touching on that question then, if you have got a client who's following a vegan diet, is that harder for you to plan a nutrition plan for them? Because obviously you've got to take into account if they have to take different supplements and stuff like that to get the same nutritional value.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it's really, it's a lot harder because like, well, I'll give you an example. For example, like fight week. So when I mentioned before about cutting the carbs out and just having protein and low on the fiber. So basically, something like salmon and green veggies be like a fight week meal, for example. But with a vegan, a lot of protein sources for vegans are also carb sources. So, like for example, lentils have got protein in, but they've also got carbs in. Chickpeas have got protein in, but they've got carbs in. So it takes a lot more planning for like, especially a fight week plan compared to meat eater. It's not. I'll actually be honest. I've only actually worked with two vegans. Surprisingly, it's like I like, especially with like the popularity of vegan diets. I thought like you get a lot more people, like fighters, like adopting a vegan diet, but it's not actually as many as I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, so
But like,
that was surprising.
but then at the same time, I don't really want to go. Oh, just like tofu's probably the best sort of sauce. Like say for fight week because it's got many carbs and like you don't really like eating tofu and veg for a week is like I don't really like. Doesn't sound great, does it?
No, definitely not.
Yes, but basically you don't want to take away too much. Where like as you say, like chickpeas and have the protein and the carb. Like you don't want to.
Yeah, so it makes it a bit. Yeah, and then it's got the fiber in as well. So like it makes it a lot more difficult than say like if I was just giving you some lean protein and veggie, like if you're a meat eater, just chicken, beef, steak, fish. Like it takes a lot more planning. Then there's obviously you've got to take into account that creatines have low vegans have lower like creatine stores because they don't eat meat. So you got to take into like supplements and vitamin B12 that you typically get from meat, and like there's a lot more. I wouldn't say a lot more planned because the all plans like take a bit of time, but there's a lot more ins and outs of that. But like, I wouldn't say luckily, but I haven't really worked with many vegans at this point.
It is where you suddenly get an influx of vegans
I was like, oh shit, making some new recipes, some tofu recipes.
So what advice would you give to people who wanted to start eating better but might have a limited understanding of nutrition? So for instance, a lot of people when they're just starting to diet or starting to work out and stuff like that, they'll sort of adopt a chicken and rice diet. What would you sort of advise them?
I think you've got to. The first thing I'd say is you want to get at least 4 or 5 good protein feedings in a day. So there's been studies on. So if you're working out and you're in a calorie deficit, like adopting a high protein diet can help with weight loss, can help maintain the muscle mass, and also it's got a satiety effect. So having a lot more protein in your diet can make you feel full and not as hungry. So I typically, as a baseline, just have 4 or 5 protein feedings a day. So keep it simple, like like a protein source for breakfast, like omelet, yogurt, smoothie. Just try and get some good eating habits, some consistent eating habits, because a lot of people like breakfast is one of the worst meals. Like for people avoiding, studies have shown that people often underconsume food on breakfast or skip breakfast, and it's just really getting them habits in place, some good eating habits, and then sort of working from there. Eating lots of vegetables, green cooked vegetables, as much veg as you can to get a lot of fiber in your diet. Try and avoid your calories from like drinks, sports drinks, or anything like that. And yeah, and with your healthy fats as well, like your oils, avocados, nuts, seeds. So it's really just educating them on having the good habits to start off with, and then once they get a little bit more understanding, then you can sort of delve deeper into the specific numbers of what you should be having. But yeah, like a lot of people, like the majority of people don't have that knowledge, so overwhelming them with you need to be eating 150 grams of protein a day or this like that. It's just like people just after a while, it's like, I can't be fucked with this, like, or tracking food and stuff like that. It's like I do so like tracking is just I for general public, it's just like I just end up losing the plot in the end, and then that's when as well where like potential eating disorders come in, because you're that obsessed with like that number and getting into that gram, and like you can go insane off it.
Yeah,
you can. I mean, there's a company I've heard of. One of my mates used them, Team RH. I'm not sure if you've seen them. It's a Geordie fella.
Okay.
And they've got their own app, and basically they take your weight and your height and all stuff like that, and then they give you they sort of have a set amount of calories for the day, how much protein you should have, how much carbs and all stuff like that, how much fat. But I think when you're tracking it and you're trying to eat better, it can seem unrealistic. So my mate who uses it, he's about 5'8" and say about, I think it's about like 13, 14 stone, and he was saying you need to have like 2,500 calories a day. And it's like, when you're actually tracking that, it seems so unrealistic, because you want to eat healthy and you're eating healthy throughout the day, and he might get to like 1,200 calories by the end of the day. And it's like, I've got to make up another 1,300 calories. Where am I getting that from? So I understand that things like that are unrealistic, and your method seems a lot better because you are catering every little bit to their individual needs, and you're not just sort of going, we've got this metric, here's what you need to do. You're getting every little bit of information to understand them better before you say, here's what you need to do.
Well, the thing is, I give like actual recipes to follow, so I think I find it a lot easier, because a guy's in fight camp and you're saying like, you need to hit these numbers, and not giving them any sort of idea, and then like, we're like, what to do. Like, I give recipes out to them to follow each day, so it makes it a lot easier. So all you need to do is cook the meal. It's already worked out for you, the portions, the ingredient, like, it's done, and that just takes one bit of stress off their mind, and you don't have to worry about doing this, doing that. But like with the fight camp, you just try and make it as simple as possible, because, as I mentioned before, like, it's like they've got a lot of other factors to focus on, and my job, like I always say in a lot of my videos and stuff, like my job's to make nutrition simple for them. Take away the stress of what they shouldn't eat. It gives them time to like focus on like performance and competition.
Yeah, definitely. So can you tell us some common myths, or like something that's common misinformation, just so we can educate some people about these, that that they're wrong basically, and if you follow them, they might not be good for you.
So I'll give it a reference to like fighters. So like a ketogenic diet, you should adopt a ketogenic diet to lose the weight. So that's so a ketogenic diet is probably like the worst diet for a fighter to have, because MMA is a high intensity sport. So to fuel that, is the energy source is carbohydrates. If you're taking away carbohydrates and just having fat in your diet, your ability to perform at them high intensities is limited. So I referenced it in a video I did a while ago. It's like putting unleaded petrol in an F1 car. Like, the car will get round the track, but it's not going to hit them high speeds that it's meant to. So, this is a big thing where like people, if you adopt a ketogenic diet, you may lose weight. A lot of it is potentially water weight, as I mentioned before, but you reduce carbohydrates. But a lot of guys are like, oh, well, I've had arguments with people on Instagram, like, oh, well, I lost this and I lost the weight and I felt great. And it's like, yeah, but like, I try and give them a reference, like, you want to do the best thing possible. Like, it's like, as I said, like, it's like an F1 car. Like, why would you put unleaded in F1? What you want to be fueling it as best as you can.
Yourself,
yeah, and like, sometimes like it goes. Yeah, I've had like really big debates with people. And it's like, and it's sometimes it's just like, you don't want to sound like, oh, like Mr. Big Ball, and say like, look, it's like, I work with guys like you in the UFC, like I speak to people in the USCPI. Nobody in that USCPI prescribes a ketogenic diet. Like, you don't see any of them doing. You don't see anyone doing that, and like like because it's not the right thing for the fighter. And like, yeah, that ketogenic diet is probably one of them. Another one, I think, a little bit different. All the stuff about like running the sweatsuit, like a couple of weeks out. Like, you've probably seen it. People are running in the sweatsuit, like on like to lose weight. And like that's just like, you're just losing water. You're not losing. As soon as you have fluid back in your body, it's going to be back in your system. Like, I've had, especially, so I've got a couple of guys. So I've got a couple of guys in Russia, and like the Russians are like, some of their weight making practice is pretty crazy. And like, a lot of them go, well, I'm just going running this. I'm running this the 3 weeks out. Oh, I'm going to run in the sweaty today to get a couple of kilos off. And I was like, you do know that's just water, because there's two differences. There's water weight and there's actual body tissue, and like people still think that running the sweatsuit a couple of weeks out is like something that you should do, and it's like no, it's a another. I'm trying to think one more. I think it's for me. It's probably the same really with the carbohydrates, not necessarily adopting the ketogenic diet, but the first thing they need to do when they need to lose the weight a few weeks out, boom, let's get rid of all the carbs, let's just have protein and veg. And then a couple of weeks in, like, oh, how do you feel, mate? I feel like shit. Like, oh, no wonder you feel like shit, you've got no carbs, are you? After 3 sessions, like, but that's, as I mentioned before, that's like a lot down to the culture and it's been passed down.
Yeah.
John in the gym did it this way, and he made what he fought for 10 years doing that. I was like, oh yeah, like great, like, he did it that way, but it's the best way to do it? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the keto diet, I mean, anything that suggests putting a stick of butter in your coffee in the morning can't be good for you. Like, it's just not right, is it? I mean, I think the keto diet it has sort of improved somewhat. I mean, I remember years ago you had the Atkins diet, and that was like you lose weight on it, but it was so unhealthy. It was like, yeah, just don't eat carbs, eat whatever you want otherwise, as long as it's not carbs. It's like you could go to Chippy and get a big tray of Dolomite and you'd be like, oh, I'm on my diet, I'm fine. It was like, it was crazy.
What's the thing with the keto thing? Like for the general person, like wants to lose weight, keto diet may work. It probably will work, but for the fighter, which is, you know, high intensity stuff, your body needs carbohydrate to fuel that.
Yeah.
And like this is going on to like another potential like myth. Like, oh, people go, oh, I'll go on keto, but then I'll just have some carbohydrates and I'll be all good again come fight day. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that. Like your body can, it's been studies showing if you adopt the ketogenic diet for a certain period of time and then you reintroduce carbohydrates, your body can't metabolize it properly. So it doesn't absorb it properly. So then you get gut discomfort. So it's not as simple as, you know, flicking a light switch and, oh yeah, back again, got carbs in my system and raring to go for the fight. It's just, it doesn't work like that. I'll go into like biochemistry shit kind of stuff, but it's that's the unfortunate thing with the internet, where, you know, someone, you know, when these celebrity fitness trainer things, oh, you do this and they just go into areas which they just don't have any idea about. And as I said before, like especially with combat sports, like people can die. Like it's as simple as that. Like people can die from stuff like that. There was a girl in Perth like 2.5 years ago where she got told by a trainer she had to lose 6 kilos. She's only 18, had to lose 6 kilos apparently, and she was running the sauna a sweatsuit, and she's collapsed and died. And it's just like, it's like crazy. And it's like, that's someone giving advice who just doesn't have a clue. Yeah. And it's like, it's not a thing to sort of like mess around. Like there's been incidents in the past where it's like, I think one of the first studies I read on this was like 3 collegiate wrestlers in like 1996 or something, and 3 of them died in the sauna. And it's just like, it's crazy thinking these guys are doing this kind of stuff and then they're competing the next day. And it's like, but then you get someone who's advocating these diets, or you should do this and should do that, with no expertise or no sort of nutrition qualifications. Like it can be a serious way. People can die.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask you, just on the topic of myths, one thing I've always sort of been advised about carbs is don't have any carbs on a day where you train. Is that something you suggest, or is that just a bit of a strange one?
On the day when you actually, like, there's the day of training?
Like, so for like just an average person, so if you train, say, 4 times a week, don't have any carbs on whatever 4 days you would go to the gym or train or whatever.
Yeah. That's probably the first I've heard of it. Like, I've noticed there's the thing where, like, you know, people go on about like performing fasted cardio in the mornings and stuff like that, but it's all, it's hard because it's a very, I would say, a very broad, like, it's all dependent on the person. Like, you know, they could no carbs before training because they're doing a run, or but then if they're playing football or something, you're gonna need carbs to fuel training because you're gonna feel like shit. Like, it's all. This other thing about nutrition. It's like a lot of people just put just a blanket statement on things and just like that's it for everybody. Yeah. Well, you don't take into account like what people's needs are, what the goals are. It's just like, yeah, don't eat carbs after 8 o'clock and then that's it. Like, yeah, no one has to do that. It's just but hopefully, like in the sort of the other end of the spectrum, where now social media is growing and growing, there's more people, let's say like myself or other nutritionists, spreading some good knowledge about, and you know, hopefully dispelling these myths, and people aren't gonna follow these bad dietary advice that's been sort of passed down for years.
Yeah, I think a big thing with them as well is like it seems to be like it sort of becomes trendy. You know what I mean? So when you mentioned the keto diet, like at one point that was a big trend, and obviously a lot of people love trends and sort of jumping on bandwagons and doing this because it's popular. And I think that's something that should change. You know what I mean? It's like you're not looking at it what's best for you. You're looking at it because they're doing it, so I'll do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that needs to change. But moving forward, so obviously, you know, like with you mentioned it a bit earlier, but for you, is there any sort of techniques that are currently utilised that is unsafe for fighters? And like if there is, I'm assuming you will be, what can be used instead of that practice that they do? So like, I don't know how bad it is, but one technique a lot of people use is getting wrapped in towels and stuff. Like, is that a good practice, or is that a bad practice? And if that is, what can you do instead of it?
Well, it's all really in context. So, you know, so if break it down from, say, what we spoke about before, and you've done all them acute weight loss strategies, and you've got 1 kilo to lose the day before, and you do a water cut, you can safely lose. Well, the research has shown you can lose around under 5% of your body mass through a water cut, and we know we can safely put that water back in and have a confidence that that's going to go back into the cells and stuff like that. But going above that 5% water cut, that's when it starts going. So I'll backtrack again. Sorry. So you got to think about like the body has like 3 water compartments. So it's the intracellular fluid, which is like fluid inside the cells, which is like the kidneys, the brain, the muscle. Then there's the extracellular fluid, which is like fluid around the cells. And then there's fluid in the plasma, which is the blood. So when you initially lose water, like when you initially sweat and lose water weight, say, for example, you're sitting in the sauna bath, you begin to lose fluid from the blood. So that's pretty normal, you know, that's okay. But when you start going past the 4 or 5%, that's when it starts pulling water from the kidneys and the brain cells and stuff like that. And that's when we don't know whether your post-weigh-in refuel will get that water back into your body, you know?
Yeah.
So like you could lose 7% of your body weight through sitting in the sauna. You could have the adequate recommended refuel, but your brain may still lack fluid, and then you're more prone to concussion then, because you look at the brain like a rock in a glass of water. When the glass of water is full, you shake it around, there's bang a lot. But when you pull water from, when you drain half of it out, you bang the rock around again, it sort of clatters around. So think of the brain like that. So it's really educating on what's a safe water cut to do. So as I mentioned, you don't really want to be going over 5+% of your body mass. So 5 plus friends, if you're weighing in at 70 kilos, 3.5 kilos, even though it's the upper end of it, but like we know that we can from the research we can safely rehydrate it in that post weighing period if it's the day before weighing. But then when you start going above that, that's when it starts getting into sketchy areas.
Right.
Then you're getting into potential heat stroke, heat illnesses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But then at the same time, like a lot of guys go way above that 5%. Like, as I mentioned before, guys losing like, nearly 10% of the body weight in a water cut, and it's just like, but like, there's the good thing about what I mentioned before about the research in combat sports. There was a really good study doing the effects of a hot bath versus the Epsom salt bath, because a lot of fighters use Epsom salt because they believe it enhances, the theory is it enhances the osmotic pressure, so it basically enhances the fluids out of the body.
Right.
And they did a study where it was, I think it was 8 grapplers or 8 to 10 grapplers. So they split them into 2 groups. They did a freshwater bath, which was 37 degrees, and they did an Epsom salt bath, which was like 2 kilos of Epsom salt in 125 liters of fluids and water. Same temperature, and then protocol was 20 minutes in the bath and 40 minutes in the towel wrap. And then they measured the body mass loss after it, and there was no difference between the two.
Right.
But it was a really cool study to show that like doing that protocol is safe. But you just got to get the right temperature and stuff like that. And so to answer your question about the towel wrap, like that's a safe thing to do, but you've got to be in that lower range of the water cut to do it safely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you say then that really any method of weight cut can be safe as long as it's done in the right way?
Yeah, and if you're in a decent range, as I mentioned before, about your own fight week, and you're within that safe range of body mass that you can lose, you've been eating lots of carbohydrates, you've been eating lots of fiber, you've still having salt in your diet, like my philosophy is you've got to start early, and like if you get it right from the start, when it comes to that final week, it's a hell of a lot easier. And you like the countless times I've had guys where like this is like the easiest weight cut I've had. I can't like I should be like should I eat the day before? Yeah, eat. I cut food 2 days out. Like you can eat, it's cool. Like it just educating them and doing it the right way. And like my job's done, because I know guys who I work with, they're not going to work with me forever. But if I can implement the right ways to do it, and then they can go off into the sunset and follow that advice, then my job's done then.
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, we mentioned about goals earlier. Have you made any more goals, and where would you like to see Condition Nutrition in 5 years' time?
So my next goal is I want to create like an online course. So I want to do like a weight cutting fight camp nutrition course. So I want to get people from like the UFCPI to do videos on like what's the best way to talk about hydro, like areas where I haven't got any expertise in. So for example, I talk about nutrition, then I'll have someone talking about mindset, someone who does mindset in that area, then someone who does, S&C work, and like getting all the best people in this area and putting it into a course. It's a big project I want to work on, but I feel like it's something that would really be good for people to have, and it's all in one go. And and hopefully, I'm trying to expand Condition Nutrition as much as I can now. So probably be having like an intern under me in the next few months, and just keep on going from there, and just keep on doing, like, my thing is to keep on doing good work and keep doing what I'm doing. Like good things will come, and just keep working hard, and that's my philosophy.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, Peter, it's been great to talk to you today. It's been really, really insightful and eye-opening for us.
No worries.
And no doubt that in the next 5 years, with the growth you've already had with the company, in a short space of time, no doubt the next 5 years are going to be even bigger for you. So really looking forward to seeing your progress and seeing you continue to grow. And again, it's been a pleasure to have you on.
No worries. Yeah, good to have on, but probably come on again soon. Yeah, year or so time. We'll see.
Welcome back anytime, mate.
No worries, mate. Both have a good day.
You too, mate. Take it easy.
See you, mate.